And also, obviously, Aston Villa, who have taken that final European spot, finishing in 7th place. That seems so unlikely, didn't it, in November when Unai Emery took over? His progress as Villa manager since that time has been amongst some of the best performances of any team and any manager in that period. And to finish 7th, 1 point away from a Europa League place as well, is incredible. So that achievement alone deserves, I think, him being probably manager of the season. And obviously you're going to say that. But even as a neutral, I don't think there's many that have surpassed that kind of expectation that he had, which at the time was very low, let's face it, taking over from Steven Gerrard. But to finish the season in a European place, going on a European tour, Miles, how are you feeling?
It's incredible. I can't believe it that we've managed to secure it, because although people will say Brighton were on the beach, they drew against Man City midweek and they'd already secured their place in Europe, really. So it still wasn't an easy game by any means, but we did what we needed to do. We played incredibly well. It wasn't a backs against the wall, just try and hold out for any kind of messy result you can. They played some excellent football again, and that's what Emery's got us doing. It's phenomenal. He came in, I think we'd got 9 points from 11 games under Gerrard, which is just, it's ludicrous. And in 25 games, Emery's managed to pick up 49 points.
Phenomenal.
That's 2 points a game, nearly, for Aston Villa, considering we looked like we were in a relegation battle at the start of the season. He has to get manager of the season. To put it into context, De Zerbi, one of the other candidates for manager of the season, took over Brighton at a point where they were already kind of pushing for Europe. True. And he's done incredibly well with it, but he's got 49 points in 32 games. Emery's managed that exact same points tally with Villa in 7 less games. He has to be manager of the season. He's the achievement for Villa to find themselves back into Europe after a long time out. For a club that should be knocking on the door of European football. It's phenomenal. And although it's not the elite competition or even the one that maybe a lot of Villa fans would have hoped for, missing out by a point this season, we'll invest well in the summer. I can see us going again for it next year, absolutely. And look at how much it's galvanised West Ham towards the end of the season, having a good run in that competition. Yeah. Villa should go all the way in the Conference League. The only other team that might stand in the way are Juventus, really, and maybe Sevilla if they drop into it. But you've got to be confident as Aston Villa going into that tournament.
I was going to say, from looking into next season perspective, I mean, Emery didn't have that many funds in January, did he, to strengthen his squad? And you'd imagine that would have been the reason why they performed so well in this latter half of the season. Yeah. But it's not. I mean, he's coached so many of them players to be better. Looking at Douglas Luiz for a start, he's a different player, isn't he, under Emery? Yeah. He's always had it in him to perform the way he has. But probably, he's their player of the season, isn't he, for Aston Villa? Jacob Ramsey as well, fantastic. Ollie Watkins, we've spoken about him in depth. What kind of coaching things do you think he's done specifically to make these players better? He's an absolute genius as a coach. That's on the show now. The amount he's got out of these players is incredible. But what's the secret, do you think?
His meticulous attention to detail definitely helps. And I think the fact that he's got a style that he wanted to implement on that team, but is aware of how that will work against his opponent as well. So it's very consistent. You see Villa playing now with a high line, playing their way out from the back when they're on the ball, and then midfield, they play with 4 central midfielders. 2 of them start to drift out wide to open space up for Ollie Watkins. That's pretty consistent no matter who your opponent is. However, even like this weekend against Brighton, you know that Brighton's danger comes from midfield, from Caicedo, McAllister. Now they've got Enciso. But Villa was so compact at times when they needed to be, and they just controlled the ball. It looks like there's always an option for them, and their movement is so much more fluid now. Anything was an improvement on what we had, if we're totally honest. If we look at Villa's last 2 coaches, I love Dean Smith, and I thought he did a great job at Villa, but a big part of his game was being very motivational, having a star player that he knew he could get the ball to, and trying to play around that realistically. Gerrard came in, had no style, no substance. I still don't know what his tactics were now. Yeah. Emery's come in and given them a clear plan, and they are good players. If you look at Villa's squad on paper, they should never have been in a relegation battle at the start of the season. It's a phenomenal squad, and he's getting the best out of players that we knew had those potentials. Douglas Luiz is the perfect example. I think he's on 5 goals, 5 assists under Emery alone this season. Wow. From a player that plays in holding midfield sometimes. He's one of the 2 in a pivot very often. But he's unlocked that potential that we saw Guardiola had seen in Douglas Luiz. And for him to be player of the season after we nearly lost him to Arsenal in the summer, that's incredible. Ramsey got young player of the season again, and really well deserved. He was outstanding against Brighton.
He
He's ended the season so well. He scored in both of his last games. He definitely should have scored in this one. He blazed one over the bar from about 2 yards. But his 2 assists just show how intelligent he is as a midfielder at a very, very young age already. The assist for Watkins in particular was such a lovely goal to watch. It's a beautiful ball from Bailey to him in the first place, which just shows who's willing to make the advance run. Bailey dropping that deep and playing a ball into a midfielder running through, that's a very Emery thing. It's being willing to move around into different areas. It's almost like total football style. And his awareness to find Watkins rather than kind of selfishly have a pop at goal, that's an advancement in Ramsey's game. Mm-hmm. That's not something he would have done under Gerrard, to be totally honest.
No.
So yeah, it's so exciting. And the potential's endless with this squad.